Yes, I'm going to be provoking to saying something about this incident with Starmer's brother. I'm sure it's probably been in the news, but I've never heard of it, so it was completely out of the blue for me to hear about it. I don't know if the news has been updating people on it or not, but I would have thought I'd have seen or heard something more about it. So, as for the timing of it, so obviously, it's a sad thing, an upsetting thing. Obviously, condolences to Starmer. Saying that, um, I just can't believe it. I really can't believe it because at the and this is why. This is my reason. At the moment, up till this point in the recent phase of what's been happening, Starmer is literally pulling out all the moves, all the stops. He's literally kind of scrambling around with the levers and buttons of government, trying to pull wild moves, basically, wild cards. A little bit like, what Trump said to Kennedy, go go wild or whatever, when he gets into the health department of the American government, Starmer's going wild. He's, saying that we're not going to have any local council elections, and then he's saying he's going to remove these House of Lords life peers, and then he's going to put loads more Labour Party peers in there, and then he was going to send police around to people's houses who signed that petition. He's wanting the voting through this assisted suicide bill when it's illegal for them to vote it through because of religious legislation and the origin of every act of law, the power that powers every act of law, and the force which enforces law. There are so many things that they're doing illegally, and then they've been ignoring the rights, and they've not been they're denying and delaying justice. There's some things going on to do with Starmer's pension as well, and I don't want to, I don't want to start trying to, play myself up or anything. But among other people, I've been, doing quite a lot of things to try and get some actions through government, which are going to have quite a significant effect on a lot of people, particularly with rights, but also. Starmer's pension, he's taking money away from loads of people, but he's going to be getting massive relief, and then I want to try and use some money to oppose them, and they're not even letting us engage in politics. They haven't been giving us any relief at all. They've been preventing small political groups from getting into bigger political groups effectively. So Starmer's brother, right? I think my opinion, and obviously, I don't, it's always upsetting, but like that Southport incident, and many other incidents, I just think that it's a blatant and timed move from the government. I think they've, sent his. I either think they've sent his brother off on witness protection, give him a new identity, and then, made it look like, he's died, something to scare all the Crown prosecutors and the CPS or anyone who might stand against Starmer or whatever, another scare theory. Or he really did die, but, someone did something, and then there's all the stuff with Charles, and the cancer, and supposedly the Duchess as well. So, how long did that lead up to? It could be in that kind of thing as well, but we don't know whether that was, falsified results or not, or we don't know whether it's all made up. No one knows because they're not going to let us do our own tests and make our own decision independently in independent tests. So it's hard to say. Either way, it's almost like the Boris Johnson's dad's next door neighbour thing. You know, it scares a lot of Tories. It frightens people. Then you got all those, you know, footballers dropping down on the football pitch. You've got some of those soldiers just fainting and passing out next to Charles, you know, as if he's like got the Emperor's power, you know, be scared of him, you know, whatever. But he's just acting like, oh no, what's happening? It's, you know, it's all drama. So you know, the timing for it, and then there's this big petition, and then there's, you know, Starmer's getting heckled in the streets, loads of videos of that. So there's immense pressure. So I'd have been surprised if something didn't happen. And things have been happening, but I would have been extremely surprised if something like this hadn't happened, particularly when, you know, it's perfectly timed for feel sorry for Starmer, you know, which, you know, what can you do? Almost like, you know, let's start a fight with Russia and then get a country blown to smithereens, and then let's feel sorry for all the refugees because they've got nowhere to live. But, you know, it was partly our fault for supporting the war and provoking Putin, you know, but then we've got to feel sorry for them, which, you know, I'm not saying don't help people, but it's the motivations behind it, you know. They've caused it. You know, they provoked Putin, and they're responsible for all of the whole country getting blown up and people dying because they wanted to provoke Putin. You know, Corbyn wouldn't have. Would have been better with Corbyn. Put it this way, the entire country of Ukraine would have been better with Jeremy Corbyn in this government because they wouldn't have had their country blown to smithereens, right? And we might have been able to go dancing with Russian ladies, you know. So this is it, you know. Maybe it was a good thing when Russia dumped all the McDonald's logos and everything like that and got rid of all their American food investments. But then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is meant to be revolutionising the whole American food industry anyway. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to be supposedly getting rid of all the dodgy food in America. So never mind Putin getting rid of it, you know. Snap. So, you know, it's, and then there's, you know, I'm wanting to do a video about the whole kind of like the role of the oaths and the role of the religion and the origins of the religion and the oaths and how that fits into modern hidden politics and all this kind of like strange, well, you know, all mysterious events, basically mysterious events, because there are certain functions of government in the background and certain laws in effect where, you know, is it magic? You know, some people call it religion, a Protestant religion, but is there black magic going on? You know, what's going on with all these oaths and well, they call them privy allegiances, you know, what's going on with all these private allegiances and so forth, when we're meant to have a fair open democracy, and what about all the legislation being broken against oaths, you know, because there's a lot of oaths being broken by people in government, people high up in government. So, you know, I'd have been surprised if something like that hadn't have happened, because it's absolute and complete immense pressure now on government, you know. So, I know there are many ways they could do it, you know, either you know, Starmer's brother was... You see, this is the thing. We've got to... What is the situation? not everyone knows the actual situation at the moment. The situation is we've got years of crime by the CPS, and either they're going to have to face the music and be accounted for that crime or not. And then there's all of the legislation which has been enacted wrong, in error, and then there's things that they're putting through government now illegally, denying our rights. So you're looking at multiple people in government departments facing criminal charges, right? But, and this is why I want to do another video separate about all these oaths, because it turns out that particular cases, causes and things have to be kept secret or have to be immediately addressed to the king or sent to the king without any interaction from the Privy Council, particularly if it's going to harm the reputation of the king or his government or the country, which is basically, who is the Privy... Well, when the Privy Council is the Prime Minister and the Speaker of Parliament and like all your bishops and the leaders of the main parties, you've got a big problem, because then you realise that, they're actually not allowed to sort out a very big problem, which actually... So, institutional corruption, someone once said that, no one's ever proved institutional corruption, right? Well, that can't be true because, James ran off and dumped the seal in the river, supposedly, so there's something was surely corrupt about that. There's been incidents, so the thing is, apparently, you can't... The royals have got to have the hearts and minds of the country, or they're not going to be popular. Although there have been unpopular monarchs before, notoriously unpopular. But supposedly, this is their objective, what they've got to maintain. So, if you can have people be naughty like Lord Hanningfield and they have to face the music and punishment, and then they set an example to the country or nation, but they can't just do that for every wrong because they've got a reputation to keep, right? So the actual proper, real, true, serious things don't actually get officially resolved, or if they do, they quietly tidy them up in the background and don't tell anyone. But I don't actually think they really do. And then they carry on doing other criminal things. So he never gets sorted out, which is why we're in this position. So, if you've got like 30 police chiefs who have been engaging in, illegal road signage and not doing anything about it, and also the local councils are involved and the Crown prosecutors over a length of time, but also not just that, because you could say, oh, well, that's only, not everyone does road traffic cases. Well, so what about these political cases, What about his right to petition? What about parliamentary privileges and so forth? Or, you actually don't even need parliamentary privileges because it's meant to be a right, an independent right, which it figures into parliamentary privilege, but it comes at it from... It's got its own right in law and doesn't need consent or permission from the Speaker of Parliament. It doesn't even need Parliament to be in session. The law gives you a right, but it's a right which has a usage in Parliament. You're coming into Parliament with a cable which has already got its own right and power. It's not like the Parliament unit, but it's compatible with it. It's almost like, a hub. If Parliament's a hub, it fits the connector for it with its own right. Okay, so you are using parliamentary privilege, but you're coming in it with your own right as well. So, what I figured out is that, there's a lot of ancient and age-old ways and means of this government of operating. Like um, how they do things their way. They like to set examples, secrets, certain departments. Um, the Lord Chamberlain figures into it because he licenses plays. So when you figure all the oaths into it and all the legislation and then the religious part of it, it is a magic. It's imperial magic. Um, Yet they said that they stamped out witchcraft, but what was witchcraft? Well, it was lots of independent persons, particularly they targeted females, saying that they were doing bad things to people, using the arcane arts. But they are using the arcane arts. The religion is arcane art, And then when we go on to the other video part, I wanted to draw a picture, to be honest. That's why I wanted to do it in another video. I wanted to draw it out on paper, draw a little chart out. But I guess I can dictate it. So the Privy Council oath, it goes back earlier than kind of like the 1500s, but it evolved and changed. But I haven't actually got the full entire original sentence, but I don't think it was quite as extensive as it is now. But it's your Magna Carta and your confirmation of the charters, and you got your Charter of Liberties and so forth, right? Now, that Statute of Westminster the Second, when they have this bill of exemption, it makes it so you can disagree with any judge and basically have the matter automatically go to the king, right? Usually it's a complaint against a judge's conduct or behaviour, and you're complaining about the rule of law or a right not being upheld by the judge, almost kind of like, because they didn't have legal advisors. But also, it's a grievance to the king, but through the circuits of the justices, right? And remember, they didn't have parliament all the time, but the king had a council, right? Now, they've got this oath for the king as well. Now, this is that any criticism, anything negative, effectively, right? Which the Privy Council end up hearing or getting, any word of or information about, or anything which touches their ears or I suppose eyes, they cannot have an opinion on it effectively or think about it, but they kind of like are compelled by magic for it to be basically forwarded to the king or sent to His Majesty, right? It makes me wonder what happened to those stickers that went missing from the police station. When I did the sticker campaign when I first did it. It makes me wonder, they've mysteriously vanished. Just like these BBC archive tapes of this, Space Pirates episode have gone missing. They're a little bit like. I actually think George Lucas was motivated or inspired by those tapes to do Star Wars, to be honest. So if Prince Philip had a grudge about them copying, making the commander on the Death Star look a little bit Philippy, and if they couldn't directly blame George Lucas, maybe they blame the BBC. I don't know. That's just that's just an out there kind of like thought. I'm not saying that that's fact or not. That's just like a notion. But things go missing. BBC tapes go missing. I was editing a video which happened to have a royal theme to it when I was a teenager, and it mysteriously went wrong, and bits of the video didn't work, and it just ruined the whole thing. So it never got completely finished. But it had like a royal theme to it. But you know, at that time, I wasn't going out my way to do that. It was just like I was just like almost in a dream, you know, just going along, just doing whatever popped into my head, and not really scrutinizing or thinking about it too much. It was just like, oh, I'll do Union Jack, and oh, I'll do some gravy on it, and then it'll just go like that. And you know, I wasn't really premeditating it to be anyway. I was just like literally, you know, when you chucking ingredients in random, just chucking random ingredients into the mix basically, and that's what it came out like. But when it comes to it going wrong, it was all mysterious digital technical intervention or errors. So, you know, looking at that Privy Council oath now, I would have said that without any intention from my part, it probably would have qualified to trigger that Privy Council oath, you know, of any of his Privy Councillors, you know, passing the information on to him. You know, it probably would have qualified for an insult. I would have thought, probably, even if on the mild or weak part. But this is the thing. So therefore, you know, we've got this thing where apparently any criticism or grievance, right, gets passed to the king, if it goes anywhere near the Privy Councillors, and when they're in these strategic places like Speaker of Parliament, you know, leaders of opposition parties, the Prime Minister of England, all main key government positions, or positions where if any part of government hears about it, then they are likely to hear about it, or the wind's going to blow it along like a leaf, and it's going to go to them, and they're going to compel it. So it's not just through the justices. The Bill of Exemption is you putting a grievance, but then if you put in a grievance or complaint in about one of the king's judges, then it's not making the king look good, is it, or his justice system? So that qualifies for it anyway. So it's going to compel. It's all compelling it along to the king, like the spider in the middle of the web, right? Now, what about petitioning rights? Well, we've always been able to petition, put these grievances, and this is the thing, they always go to the king. But we didn't necessarily have any particular protection, although you're meant to be protected to follow your cause from your peers, right? You're meant to be protected to follow a cause in law from the judgment of your peers, right? But all these things that happen seem to be unexplainable or bad luck, or just, you know, we don't know how they happen. Like, we don't know what happens to the Space Pirates tapes. We don't know what happened to my video. You know, we don't know what happened to Starmer's brother. You know, this is a thing. There's no proof. You cannot get any proof, right? You know, could be through the grace of God, or even, you know, reading the Earl Institute law now, they even have the curse of the bishops, right? So it could be the curse of the bishops. But this is the thing. When you get to 1688, it's the right of the subjects to petition the king, and all prosecutions and commitments for doing so are illegal. Are all prosecutions against the king illegal, equally as him prosecuting us, or his Crown Prosecution Service prosecuting us, or his police arresting us, or his government taking action against us? Well, in law, right? In law, if we have a grievance, a petition can be, you know, if you just want to get the taxes changed, it's not necessarily making the government look bad, right? Or if you want to ban smoking, unless the king's got lots of money invested in tobacco companies and it's going to affect his profits, that might, you know, not be too good for him. Whatever, you know, try to think of something that, you know, doesn't affect the king in any way, you know, making a particular widget lawful or not, right? Or something like that, right? So, but petitions also include grievances, right? Complaints against different parts of the government, or if the government has done something wrong to you, or the justices, or, you know, whatever. So that's part of it, and you can do it without being prosecuted in law. this is facing legal action. Now, this is the problem. We are getting prosecuted and we are facing legal action, and we're meant to be protected. So they're not upholding our rights when it's meant to be in the oath. The oath is meant to be for the king and the cabinet and all MPs to uphold our rights for us, the subjects, so to protect us, right? But that's been snuck out of it, and now it just says, they have to act according to law. Well, that is according to law, but it's almost like making something less clear or less clarified or less not reminding you as much. And I find it interesting that the Cub Scout logo, one of the Cub Scout badges says, least us forget or whatever, or least we forget. So it's people are forgetting. But we're meant to be protected from the law of the justices and the courts, right? Now, if that was working, it would be okay. But then you've got this other level, right? You've got this level that if you might have grievances against the government or the king or any department of the government or the king's police sergeant, inspectors or whatever, military, whatever, mysterious things happen. So, well, I got prosecuted illegally. So, the law says that we can't be prosecuted, but I was. But there are other things that can happen, like, tapes going missing from the BBC or my video getting juju Ouija'd. So, how does that happen? Well, this is the thing, is it the wrath of God? Are you supposed to think it's the wrath of God? Are you supposed to think that it's the King's Majesty? Well, he didn't prosecute you. Well, they did prosecute. He prosecuted some people, but other people he didn't. Who had grievances. Not everyone who's got grievances has been prosecuted. Only the people who've been really pushing the limits, like the Extinction Rebellion. Lots of people have got grievances against the government who didn't get prosecuted. But saying that, there's this. There's some juju going around, some Ouija, some is it curse of bishop? But the thing is, all Christian religions are meant to, push forgiveness, right? To forgive people. But in the Early Institute, they've got this, curse of the bishop and so forth. So I don't know. Is it just meant to be, well, this is the thing. What is it? We don't know because we can't prove it. We can't prove that anyone did anything. It just happens. And we're meant to believe that certain things happen just because they happen, right? And this is the thing, this is why so they have things that only certain people are privy to. It's secret. Only certain people know what happens to these witnesses when they disappear, because they give them new lives and new identities. So we know that happens because they tell us, they admit it exists, but only certain people are privy to it. That's a privilege, that they have privileged information, right? So no one knows. Well, except a very select number of people. And this is like the thing with the Privy Council and, the King's will and all his, shares and businesses and so forth, So, and also, I would also figure into this whole spider web, this whole network, also fit the telephone system into it, like BT and the phone boxes in every street corner. So therefore, I would have thought that under those oaths and under that framework, if anyone says anything on a street corner near a red phone box or in your house when your telephone's in the room, even though it's not ringing, it's like it's just sat there quietly, but maybe. You don't matter whether they lift the receiver up or down or not. If anyone says bad about the government or whatever, apparently it can be compelled. Although I'm not saying that every single BT worker or military service person has taken that particular oath, but if they report it or are instructed to listen out for this or that, and then they report back to, Prime Minister or Speaker of Parliament or whoever, so, and anyone who gets into government and becomes a leader of a political party, apparently Jeremy Corbyn as well, although only they don't invite every single Privy Council member to all the meetings, only certain ones. Penny Mordaunt, was only in there for a while. She's not in there anymore. But it effectively, you've got this cussing control. But basically, any complaint or any issue with the boss, apparently, the boss is to hear about it, right? Whether you know that he's heard about it or not, whether you send it to him, apparently you don't need to write it down on a piece of paper and post it to him, because if you talk about it enough, he's going to find out about it, because there's a compulsion that there's a magic network of oaths and regulation and law which compels it to the informations, right? Whether you get anything getting done about it or not, I don't know. Maybe they'll do something about it, but they find out about it. Or if they don't like what you're doing or saying, you might mysteriously get done by speed camera, and that might be bad luck. Or your best friend's cousin's dog might just mysteriously die, or whatever. We don't know, but you can't prove that it was the curse of the king, or it was the curse of a bishop, or it was just God, right? It was just God's bad luck. Your Crown Prosecutor didn't come and prosecute you for saying something, right? So this is the thing. There's all this going on in the background, and in the meantime, apparently, the king doesn't have anything to do with the running of the government. It's all House of Commons, elected members. Barry Shearman, his wife mysteriously has miscarriage, and doesn't have a baby, and then that ruins his career, and he's a very sad man for the rest of his life. Compo, and he never gets knighted either, or not what I know of yet. I don't know if maybe he has been knighted. I don't think he has been knighted, but he was never leader of the party, that's for sure. Compo, so, and then another thing, on Shearman's retirement from Parliament, they had this weird ceremony to do with COVID and lockdown, where one of the other ministers had this very strange illness and operation where he had to have lots of his body amputated. So literally, he had parts of his body sheared off, cut off, trimmed off. So he was the symbolic effigy of a man who had been literally sheared apart, Shearman. So, that's what Shearman got. This is what you get with these people. So, how does it happen? That's a good question. We don't know, because there are things that we don't know, but someone does, or someone might. Like, what happens to these witness protection people. So this is the thing. Now, where I find it gets... This is why I've got a problem with all this, right? Because, Charles, on the front face of it, is like, I don't make laws up, I leave that to the House of Commons, and then, I just, scribble on them and say, when they've decided what they want to do, I just scribble on the paper and say, okay, now it's law, right? And I walk around doing military stuff, but apparently, the Prime Minister's still directing the army, not me, although I wear all the regalia. It's ceremonial, right? And, I do charity work and go shake hands. I'm a rep. I do a bit of repping, still, the reputation, a bit of repping, reputation, do a bit of that. So, but apparently, he's not in, apparently Charles is not involved in, the running of the country, which I don't believe that for a second, right? So it does matter because you've got all this, Coronation Street, the image, screaming fans, tourists, the whole image, the reputation of the country, basically, So it matters when, the police look bad because it makes the country look bad. So, so what happens if, does that give, are the police like 007? Have they got a license to be bad? Then effectively, if one or two officers, are naughty, then maybe they can have the bottom smacked. But if the whole force is corrupt, apparently, you can't do anything about it because supposedly it's so bad that it harmed the reputation of the government so much that they just won't admit it. They can't do it. So in a way, it's a little bit like 007. These police chiefs have got license to be bad boys. They're like bad boys, license to be bad boys. Because once you get so many bad boys who are badass boys, right? Then it's impossible to acknowledge it because the horror, the shock horror of the government's reputation would be so bad that they couldn't possibly face it. So they've got a license to be bad. Once they're bad, then it's they're the bad boys. Bad boys. What you're going to do when they come for you? So that's it. Institutional corruption apparently cannot be resolved because unless it's done in secret. Certain causes, campaigns, petitions, also in the very early Privy Council of certain ones they can keep secret or not talk about. So it kind of all flows and figures in from that Bill of Exemption, but also that sort of fits in with that oath. But also it means that if you actually have got a real problem with the government, the Prime Minister and the Speaker of Parliament and so forth, they can't really acknowledge or deal with it in truth. It has to be the King himself. They just pass it to him. Other members of Parliament can recognise, discuss and understand and deal with it, but then once they speak and mention it, it will automatically then just go to the King, right? Now, what I find interesting is the petition bag is hung on the back of the Speaker's chair, right? So, if the Speaker's bag's hung on the back of the Speaker's chair, and he is meant to symbolically or actually know every single petition that goes in the bag, right? Then he cannot possibly, that there cannot be any grievance that goes to Parliament by petition that the King doesn't know about, whether it's in the bag, right? Whether or not they debate it or not. This is the thing. Now, and then all the knight companions and knights of the realm surely can't look bad. Although they used to lock them in the tower, but that's why they locked them in the tower, because they were bad and they made an example out of them. But it always used to usually be if they'd pissed off the monarch, not if they pissed off the public, Now, the religious aspect of it is a little bit more interesting, but also kind of spooky when you realise about it. Although I don't want to argue about Christianity, but because you have to go back before Christianity, really. But if we start from Constantine and Christ and the Christian religion coming into this country, you've got the Pope, the Holy See, right? Is meant to be the origin of Christianity, right? So you've got all of the kings in England are all advocates of this particular religion, which is supposed to advocate forgiveness and not sinning, right? Not being greedy, which is kind of joke really for kings, but that they're trying supposedly, So with this religious aspect of it, now the Catholic religion, right, That's the religion that's got all this weird stuff like exorcism from demons and so forth. I don't know. I'm not a massive Bible boffin, so I don't know about I don't want to go through all what Jesus did or didn't do and what he taught and the whole thing. But they've got this thing to do with exorcisms and all that kind of stuff, and the devil and evil and all this type of stuff for people who are very, 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 very naughty. And they mention evil ministers, justices, and counsellors in the Bill of Rights because they were misbehaving, right? That's when they're not applying our rights and upholding the laws. Now, when we get to Henry VIII, right? So we're led to believe, right, that Henry VIII, wanted to, fall out with the Pope and separate from the Church and start our own kind of like version of it. But they boil it all down to this divorce issue, right? Because apparently the Pope wouldn't let him get divorced. I don't actually believe that now. I don't believe that was a real reason. I think that was an excuse reason, like a false reason. It was like it was just like an excuse of a reason. I think the real reason was obviously power. To be in charge of all your own decisions, not just that you wanted to be able to get divorced rather than not being able to get divorced, right? Although the power to marry people is magic, it's binding spell, right? It's binding in law and it's binding in, physical reality. It's a binding spell. It's a kind of magic, really, I suppose. And I actually now, you see, when they don't have all this weird exorcism type of stuff, supposedly, in the Protestant religion. That's all Catholic stuff, right? And I realise this is quite important when you've got a problem with, like, the government or the king. Big, serious problems I've come to realise. Particularly when weird stuff starts happening and bad luck or weird incidents, start happening when you're trying to get things sorted out, and when you've got corrupt officials in the government. Now, so they separate the power because the power comes to the king, the English king, and the Archbishop of Canterbury. But the king's meant to be the religious figure, right? Not the Pope. And they actually went after all these people who, supported the Pope or the Popish religion, and they tried, they went after them and got rid of them all, so everyone's, idol's the king in England. Everyone, it's the king's realm, and he's the sovereign, and everyone, all the laws, you see all these oaths and bills and everything's, it flows, gravitates and centers around the king, although it's all meant to be through the grace of God, right? So, what do we do then with this model if you've got a problem with the government? If the government happens to be really bad or be doing something really wrong, if you've got a grievance, well, your grievance, we've got the right to petition. And from 1688, for sure, we are protected in law from legal actions. If they were actually upholding that, they're meant to, right? Supposedly, according to law, the king can't use his crown prosecutors or police against us if we've got a grievance, right? Which that's the big joke what Starmer's denying, because he's not upholding the rights and liberties of the realm. So, this is all in breach of oath. So what do you do when they're in breach of oath and they've got extensive corruption in their police, right? Because if you start doing grievances to the government, they're automatically going to go to the petitions bag to the speaker and Prime Minister, and they're automatically going to go to the King, and apparently the Speaker and Prime Minister can't do anything about it, actually, when it turns out, because apparently their eyes go blank and roll into the back of their head, and their head spins round, and they crawl up the wall, like in The Exorcist, and they crawl up the wall and across the top of the Westminster Hall roof into the King's chamber, and then they just whisper it in his ear, and then they crawl back again, like some Ouija board thing, and then the King, if the King then wants to instruct or direct them, he can. But this is what it turns out. It turns out that the Lady Chief Justice can't actually do anything if you've actually got a legitimate, serious complaint about government corruption. Although they've got, Judicial Conduct Office is meant to be the conduct of justices if they've misbehaved. But if that makes the reputation of the government look bad, this is the thing. Lady Chief Justice, Jeremy Corbyn, leaders of all the main political parties, Ed Davey, anyone who can really do anything in government can't do anything if it's going to make the King or the government look bad. So you've got a right to complain about something, but if it's the more seriously it is, the more unlikely you're going to get anything done about it. Unless they do something about it very gradually in secret, and slowly, iron out the creases, which I don't think works, because look at the state of the country now and the law. It's fucked. They've broken every law that there is, and they're not admitting it, because admitting it is serious. Except every now and again, certain people are allowed to be naughty and be in a naughty chair, like Lord Annenfield or whatever, or Boris Johnson, if it's extremely, extremely, extremely obvious, and if the press want to go with it, and if the Ouija board's not intervening with it. They can't block all complaints. It's not possible. It's almost like, if someone kicks 100 footballs at the goalpost, a couple of them are going to go in, right? But they're trying to keep them all out. A couple of them are going to go through, right? They can't block every single complaint, like Andrew Bridgen managed to get something done about those post office things, but so he could acknowledge a serious complaint, Andrew Bridgen noticed, but who was behind that? Who was behind the dodgy things and all the money? Was it just a power game and power control at the end of the day? There was something dodgy going on with the computers, right? Was that another one of these weird incidents, like, what happened to the fucking BBC Space Pirate tapes, what happened to my video when I was editing it, and the royal section, what happened to Boris Johnson's dad's next door neighbour, all these other things, right? We don't know, do we? Right? Now, apparently you can have a curse of a bishop in England, although, bishops aren't meant to curse people, but I suppose you're getting cursed if you broke the law and you get punished. That's meant to be a curse. That's the basis of justice, really. But when you get to this, so it's say in English law, right, you've got this, they're meant to uphold those oaths, right? Although, so what they've done to get around it is they've diluted them down effectively. They still kind of mean that they've got to uphold everything, but it's less clarified. It's more vague, right? That's what I'll say. It's more vague. So it's less powerful spell to compel them to uphold the rights. It's less obvious. It's less compelling. It's less, it's just not as powerful for them to do it. I think that's on purpose. And then they've done things like, not put certain things on websites like, Sir Thomas Erskine May parts, which also again remind them of this and that, and make things very clarified and clear and obvious, So they've been sneaking all those rights out of there the whole time, the whole way through. And but you've got this in the legislation. You've got this. You've got your Charter of Liberties and Charter of the Forest, and in your Magna Carta and so forth, which are meant to all qualify as the charters, right? The great charters, which you're not allowed to make any law which goes against them, and they're not meant to be repealed, right? Although there's some dispute over Magna Carta, but they've been opening in Parliament, right, with all the ancient rights and privileges into effect. So, you know, if they're opening Parliament with all the ancient rights and privileges, right, which they are doing, it's a bit of a joke if they haven't got all the rights and ancient privileges, because it's a bit of a contradiction, right? So, now, they're not allowed to do anything against those acts, and they can't be repealed. It's not possible, because that is what the country is. It's like it's the inheritance of the land. It's the inheritance of the hills. It's like on Iron Maiden, you know, Run to the Hills. You know, it's the inheritance of the wind, of the soil, of the earth, of the trees, of, you know, the humans that have evolved on these islands, right, and so forth, and the behaviour and customs. Even though we've had various different migrations and invasions, they're meant to naturalise when they move here, right? And it's called naturalisation. All aliens or denizens who come here slowly naturalise and become this English, right? Which is now at a certain rate where they're not naturalising and they're not becoming English. And this is why you've got a lot of racial problems, because you've got people like Priti Patel, who is about as English as a chili pepper. You know, she's not, and she's not naturalised, and she's trying to impose laws which aren't our customs. But then you've got America as well, with social media, which is affecting people. So they've accelerated migration, so it's overtaken the naturalisation rate, and they really want to scrap all these laws anyway, because they've decided that they want to take over the world and establish a new order where people don't know what's going on, and you know, there are more privileges which are so high up, so privy to the allegiance, that only a very small group of people who are highly dedicated and who would never, you know, they effectively want a privy council of privy councils of the world, which hardly anyone knows about, which is doing a lot of things in secret, only privy to them, and with no opponents or opposition, who are completely and totally aligned to one goal and objective. And they like having servants, and the servants, the servants who, you know, don't dispute or argue anything they say, you know, like Priti Patel, they give them rank, and they give them privilege. They give them privileges. They give them titles and privileges, and they make them feel special and high up and appreciated. You know, and they treat them really well. I'm not saying they don't. They treat them really well, but they're still their servants, really. And this is where then when we lose naturalization, the true ancient customs of the realm are defended by the people of the realm, right? Because they're their rights. And when people don't know what their rights are and don't understand them, they can't protect and defend them, which is what Priti Patel's doing. Priti Patel doesn't understand. She doesn't understand the rights, and she's not protecting and defending them. She's trying to take them away, and she's doing this against the people, which is like, but she's getting a cushy job, and she's being made to feel like, you know, she's blah blah blah, Right Honourable Priti Patel, blah blah blah, like she's more equal to King Charles, you know, more equal to, you know, the House of Lords or whatever, and she feels, very comfortable and happy because, isn't she so high up now, right? But she's not defending and protecting her rights. She's taking them away because she doesn't believe in them or understand them. But she's doing what she's told, and she's also getting to dictate to people. So really, she's a protected servant, but not a servant who's protecting the rights and liberties of the realm. She's a servant who is protecting the interests of this privilege, which she if she thinks she's in the privilege, then she ain't got a fucking clue what a privilege is. She's in a privilege that is within its own privilege, but not the privilege. She's not privy to certain informations, because the whole point of the way it's going is that they don't want people to be privy to, the effectively, like Tony Blair, Nick Clegg, people like that, knights, mainly the knights, because they're the ones they've got this, this Davros thing that they're wanting to do, like Chinese social point system thing, to take over the planet, and have little cameras up your arsehole, when you're a kid, implanted into your skull, so they can, have a complete central computer of everything that you do and say. They want to, they're paranoid. They have to know everything. They need to know and want to know everything, and they want to be able to control or intervene in any decision that is made if they so need to, want to, or choose to, as it suits the outcome of their agenda. That's the ultimate goal of Tony Blair. Tony Blair wants to be able to execute and intervene at any given moment and any given time in any transaction on the planet. That's the ultimate objective. While everyone else thinks and believes that they've got freedom, they haven't, because the privilege has the whoa, well, you can't do that, but you don't know that you can't do that, but you can. This is the thing. Tony, this is where Keir Starmer is now. But yeah, they're the ones who are breaking all the laws. In order to do this and accomplish this, they need to. They're breaking every single law that there is. But they're above. They're not accountable to it, and this is what you got to hold them to account. This is what is defending your country, defending your rights, defending your customs. Like the right to trade with tokens, the right to borrow and lend things. You see, an ancient right and custom is, will you lend me £5, right? That if you are an altruistic and kind country, right, then that's an ancient right and custom, is to lend people things, right? Now, if you go to Starbucks and you ain't got a plastic card or a microchip in your thumb, and they don't take money, cash, they only take your bank account thing, and then the internet system goes down. Oh, can I borrow a cup of coffee? No. Sorry, we can't serve any coffee. The system's down. Tough, right? You don't have the ancient custom of lending someone something then. Like if you go to the DIY shop and it's Mr. Smith's, and his electricity goes off in the building, and you desperately need a widget to fix your wall, and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's company policy. I can't do that." Or I'm sorry that your chip's not getting accepted or whatever. You lost the ancient custom of friendship, love, caring, charity, lending, sharing. So this is what in the Bill Gates world, in the Jeff Bezos world, it doesn't exist. You've just got directive, code. Mark Zuckerberg, code. Oh, can you lend us a fiver, Mark? Can you lend us £10 million? Oh, no, that's not directive 745623. This is it. So you're losing ancient customs and privileges because they don't like love. These people don't like love. They don't believe in love. Love's not good for business. Love's not good for profits. love is absolutely disastrous for business, right? And supposedly love is meant to be what the church is built on. Ironically, one of the earliest oaths from ancient Greece, which is not even meant to be like a religion, it's meant to be like the ancient doctors, we're talking about Hippocrates and that. He's meant to be that you will treat your teacher as if he's a member of your family, and you do lend and share things, and and things like, and you do an oath to all of the gods, not just one god, like they're saying that all pagans have all these different gods. It was actually meant to be all of them. So in a way, it's almost kind of like all on. It is really treating it like as if I think it's kind of a little bit more like the acknowledge that that there's some force which at least all the other gods are part of or come from. Why would it have to be all of them? It was to all of them. So that's ironic. But anyway, coming back to this English thing with the country at the moment. So trying to get something done when you've got this institutional corruption or corrupt characters, or the corruption's quite high up, possibly even the king, could even, dare we even accuse? Well, you got the right to, Standing Order 155. You've got the right to have a grievance against king or anyone in government. That doesn't guarantee you a resolution or that you're getting anything done about it, but you're not meant to be punished in law. But it seems like we're getting punished in other ways, unfortunately. Now, when they're going against the Great Charters, like I said, it actually says it's meant to be a bishop who actually enforces the charters. A bishop has to enforce the charters because they've got supposedly spiritual power, right? And they can compel judges and other members of the government, parliament, to act and correct their wrongs, right? Like Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, but instead now he's getting a knighthood, right? Even though he could well have gone against the Great Charters of London to do with this tolls, free passage on the roads. Although I haven't finished that investigation's another thing to look into. And then you've got all these religious, now this assisted suicide bill as well could be against the Great Charters because of the religion, right? And in fact, I've got this here is confirmation of the liberties of the church. First, that the Holy Church have and enjoy her franchise and liberties in all points in an ample manner, and them in time progression the kings of England, and that the Great Charter. So the Great Charters, right? In fact, so the Great Charters are actually intimately tied in with the liberties of the church and upholding the church. So that's why the bishop's got to uphold the charters, because it's part of the actual the church's liberties and freedoms are actually tied in and knitted together with those charters and liberty charters. Now, remember that was all before Henry VIII, right? Although those charters are still law, right? So what happens when they expel all popishness and the Pope, and they ditch all this Pope's intervention and spiritual power, and it's just the king? What happens then? Well, apparently we've started to accept other religions back in now and tolerate them and so forth. So you're not going to be executed or anything, for supporting the Pope. But how do you what? So what's the situation with the bishops, right? To uphold those charters, if it's the king who's going against them, right? But if it's a really serious, important grievance against the king, then the bishops apparently, their eyes roll into the back of their heads and they don't know any complaints against the king, although they will, just like, kind of go like a zombie and pass it to him, and he'll get the message, and then he can do what he wants, What happens with that? Well, that's interesting. Those charters have got to be upheld in law, right? According to law. But, who's not following the charters? It doesn't make the government look bad and so forth. If it's that serious, it has to be kept secret and privy. So it's all a bit weird. So, like, I got to the stage where I'm like, do we need an exorcist? Do we need an exorcist to get the evil out of these judges and ministers? Well, the thing is, right, it's not funny because in the 1688 Bill of Rights, which is what gives us our rights as liberties and subjects and protects us from being prosecuted, it was because of evil judges and ministers and councillors, right? That's the whole point. They were evil because they're not upholding our rights, which is why they put it in the oath to clarify, to bind the magic to make them uphold the rights and the king, right, in the oath. But they've diluted it down again. The scoundrels, they diluted it down. So the magic's kind of wore off and not working, So, and if can the bishop uphold those charters, taking into account the Privy Council oath? So there's a bit of a conflict in between the king and the bishop and the laws, but the oaths were compelling and now they're less compelling. So this is where it gets interesting with Pope Francis, because Pope Francis, they have exorcisms, and they don't have exorcisms in the Protestant church, but they do in the Catholic church. And remember, the popes voted in, regardless of the elites and Club of Rome and whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, popes are voted in, even if it's from a select elite. At least they're voted in. So it's it's kind of like, in a way, one of the last remaining links to the ancient Roman Empire when it was a republic, in a way, kind of like, it's not Caesar with an army taking over, so so that's the interesting part. Do you have to go to another sovereign? Now, the thing is that the religion, regardless of Henry VIII and Charles and so forth, and the Protestant faith, is the king as deeply and intimately the crowning of the king is extremely Protestant, right? But when the king went to see the Pope, he gave him a piece of Jesus' cross, and it's meant to be the same religion, or from the same religion. So he's got a piece of this cross of Jesus, which, if this is meant to be the cross that the whole religion is founded on, and that's the actual a piece of the cross of Jesus or something like that would be something that you used to to do an exorcism, because you need a powerful holy relic. So it's quite ridiculous, really. But I've done talks about the cross and Jesus, because it's still the thing with what happened to Jesus, whether it's magical or not. At the end of the day, crucifixion was something they did to criminals, right? It was a criminal process, a judicial process. It's a religion with a judicial process symbol. So, although, you know, obviously it wasn't Jesus's symbol when he was alive doing his teachings, his teachings were his what he did and said was the religion, not what ended up happening to him. His actual teaching was the religion. What he taught was the religion, not what happened to him after he'd finished the religion. Someone made a religion out of what he did and taught. So, but you've got these commandments coming from right at the start, which are meant to, if you subscribe to that religion, no matter what sect part of that religion you subscribe to, right? If you follow it all the way back into what it's acknowledged as, is that this entity, God, these commandments came from the entity. They were attributed to that force and power. And regardless of what Jesus did or what the Vatican do or whatever, or what religious fraction of Christianity the English monarch subscribes to, it's all acknowledging and admitting that the God that they're talking about, and the God that is enacted through the laws, and the God that is the grace of this God which all the laws, the effective power and magic of all this and all the herbs and everything is meant to be God, right? The same acknowledged God. So, and then you've got, in English law, it says that God is the supreme judge, which is another big contradiction, because if God is the supreme judge, then the king isn't the supreme judge, which is interesting. So what happens when all these weird things start happening, when people are complaining with grievances and grumbles, which are so severe and important that no one can do anything about them because it makes the king look so bad? Is it God? This is the thing. Is it made to look like it's God, or is it God? Well, it can't. Apparently, it can't be a crown prosecutor or a police chief. That's for sure, right? Not in a court of law, but we're getting put in courts of law because they're acting illegally and they're not upholding their oaths, which is criminal, right? So they're breaking the law, but they're not getting prosecuted because they're in control of prosecutions. So we've got a problem there. We've got criminals, we've got institutional corruption, and that's the problem we need to get rid of. If the oath was being upheld, then we would have our rights and be protected. We could bring grievances, and whether or not anything got done about them or not would be a different matter, but we could bring them and be protected, right? But at the moment, or at least protected from the courts. Now all these other weird things that happen when you start pressing these things, and that's where we are now with Starmer. We're pressing him. We're pressing his entire regiment of Crown prosecutors, police chief officers, MPs. They broke the law, and it's going to make this, monarch look bad, and his own government, it's not going to make him look good. So that's where we are with it. And if they're not going to uphold these charters, which cannot be undone, and if the MPs are voting against these charters, and if they're not upholding our rights, and people are getting put in prison with legitimate petitions, supposed to be protected, you got a problem. So what can you do about it? Well, this is the thing. This is where we are. We've got weird stuff happening. Starmer's under intense pressure now. He's pulling all the levers. He's pushing all the buttons. Like, in The Wizard of Oz with the man behind the curtain. When the curtain flaps and there's a guy pulling all the levers and buttons and trying to this big booming voice. Oh, the Great Oz, boom, 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 to scare everyone, right? And that's I think where we are with it at the moment. But it's made to look like it's God, like it's just bad luck, like but some gods with some power that's definitely not with us who want this problem sorted out. And then you've got Starmer's brother dropping down. You've got Boris Johnson's dad's next door neighbour going around, with a shotgun and like headless chicken. You've got all this stuff going off now. Now that this is the thing, is it who's doing it? Who's privy to it? Madeleine McCann, who's the man behind the curtain? Are they really are they killing them? Scaring everyone? Are they sending them off with a new identity somewhere? And we don't know. This is the thing. They're trying to pass it off as bad luck, the curse. That when we try and push for these things to get corrected, bad things are happening, and apparently it's our fault. But yet we've got the right to pursue it. Now, it's not voodoo or Ouija or juju or curses when a crown prosecutor brings an illegal criminal charge. It's not juju or bad luck or a curse when a police chief or his officers illegally arrest you when it clearly and plainly says in the law that they can't. Right? Now, this is the thing. So they're not doing what they're told, right? But we are within our rights. We're not breaking the law. They're only there to uphold the law, right? That we can't be prosecuted, so it shouldn't have anything to do with the law. For us, it should have something to do with the law for the other party, right? And we're not getting that. They're not even wanting to acknowledge it, and the more serious it is, the less likely they are to acknowledge it. So this is the thing with Starmer now. It is a form of exorcism. And they're crawling the walls, and all the weird shit's happening. The creaking, the weird incidents. This is the exorcism of England. Effectively, we're exercising England because we've got a lot of evils, right? And there's shit happening, and I don't think everyone understands that. Look at the physical bodies of many people. Religions were meant to have fasting. There's a lot of religions that have these fasts, and it's meant to be something that cleanses the body, and rebalances. We don't have any fasting anymore in England. It's foot pedal to the metal with all these fast foods. I mean, this is the thing what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is wanting to do, sort out the food system. Maybe you could start with, doing some kind of have some fasts, get Americans back into fasting. It doesn't have to be weird and odd. It doesn't have to be like, wear a burqa or anything like that, or hop on one right leg or something. It just has to be, maybe they could close all the food shops again on Sundays or something like that. We used to have Sunday the day of rest, but they turned it into another corporate day. Turned it into another corporate. This is retail. This is what Bill Gates does. You see, this is the problem with Bill Gates. He's not a religious man, I don't think, and neither is Jeff Bezos. He's a businessman. They don't really understand the soul and the spirit. They understand money, numbers, profits. People want this product. They like this music. So I'm going to sell them some. And give them a discount now and get it free fucking Deliveroo. They get Amazon Prime. What could I be doing wrong in the world? You know, any widget under the sun. Jeff can have it, before you even ordered it, turned around at your house. But it doesn't. I don't think he understands that the human body. Well, his body's a temple. Jeff's body's a temple. He's eating a salad leaf every day. Look at his flexing Arnold Schwarzenegger muscles. But us, we're not, because and it's not about commanding and ordering people, to eat this or do that, or having them like some kind of android machine, dropping pills down or whatever. It is the fact that that they're selling the wrong things, sell. They're advertising, business, commerce, the wrong things. It's all wrong. It's all bad. And this is the failure of the Lord Spiritual in Parliament. This is the complete and utter failure of the House of Lords to do its job, to do what it's meant to do. Like with all these, things that they're meant to have in the religion, that in theory, when it works properly, it's meant to do something like, curb greed and excess, and overeating and all these other things, but it's not doing it. And Starmer wants to scrap the House of Lords because he doesn't really understand or know anything about. He doesn't have the spiritual vision. He's not a spiritualist man who understands souls and spirits of humans in an actual way, like a scientist studies psychology and biology to a highly proficient level equal to university level. It's not good enough. And if anyone who needs to call an expert in, shouldn't be an MP. We don't want MPs who need to call experts in. It's like having a judge. It's like these judges, magistrates, when they've got the legal advisor sat there, right? Yeah, in Magna Carta it says that no, any of the, the lawmen, the justices, shall be proficient in law, but they're not. They're not proficient in law. This is the thing, So it's almost kind of like the magistrates' court's the perfect example. They got legal advisor. Well, why? They've made the qualification. It's like they've done it on purpose. That they've made the magistrates crap at law, and the legal advisors aren't always got initiative to control proceedings or act. So it's just like taking someone's brain out and putting it on the table next to them, and then say, "No, if I only had a brain." This is the thing. There should be certain qualification requirements for MPs, although it's meant to be free that anyone can stand, but no one really ever gets in now who's not a member of a main party. Some MPs, they strategically get in who have got qualifications because they want this particular MP to stand in a safe seat so they can get this person into government and get this person into the cabinet. But look at all these people. I mean, that Lucy, the Culture, Media and Sports Secretary, Lucy Fraser, she was going to be a KC or a QC or whatever. But was she, she wasn't a professional runner. She wasn't a professor in the arts or media. She was just a King's Council lawyer. Just because you're a King's Council lawyer doesn't necessarily mean that you know anything about sports, or television. This is the thing. So lot. Starmer says that, he's going about fixing the foundations, but this is the thing. I don't think that there's anything wrong with the law. I think it's them. It's the people. They're not doing what it says. And they don't want to, particularly now with Nigel Farage and Tice and, with Rees-Mogg and George Galloway. They don't want there to be laws which give them, which prevent them having an advantage politically in elections. They want it to be completely and total open free-for-all now across social media. Although certain people have got more or less followers, and it's like, people are getting advantage from certain financial funders or promotions that others aren't having access to, and that's the unfairness part of it, And to be honest, maybe everyone should have a vote. I mean, I guess it comes back down to that thing that Elon Musk says, like, only the wise should make decisions. But, that goes where we are now. It doesn't say much for the wise people we've had so far, They're only wise at certain things. They're wise at making things, but they don't really know what to do with them. They can make some of the most amazing technologies, but they don't actually know best how to put them to use, or when best not to use them. I think that's the thing. Humans can make amazing things now, but they don't really know what not to do with them and what to do with them, which is the main problem of the issues that we're facing. So going back to the religion and everything, so in English law it says God is the supreme judge, but does that mean that apparently all the things that happen is apparently God's wrath? But if God's on Charles's side, then you better not complain or grievance about these really serious things that they can't really do anything about because it's too serious to admit fault. You're going to run in trouble in God's wrath if you bring up grievances like that. This is a thing. This is a thing. When they've got powers, you see, they've got privy processes for sure. We know they've got privy processes for relocating people, identities, citizen witness protection, right? They've admitted that only certain people are privy to it. We know there's a privy council, and only certain people are invited to the meetings, and not all of them. And they've got to keep things secret by oath. And the closer they are, the more and more secret it is. There are things that we don't know. So this is a thing. I'm suspicious about these events, like Starmer's brother dying, Johnson's dad's next door neighbour, because I know these things can be done, right, by humans, by people. It can be done, and it can be done to scare people. It can be done to make a point, like it's in Rebellion, spray a building to make a point, or block a drive-through to make a point. But they're not hide it. It's not privy. It's not like it's not privileged information. They're not like sneaking up and they're not doing it covertly and not admitting it was them. It's not like Extinction Rebellion. A car factory secretly blows up. Who was it? And this is a problem because they're so this is what we're facing. We've got entities and groups who are doing things, and
and they're not admitting it. But it seems to be suggestive that they're petitioning us with subjects, and it's what we make out of it and interpret of it. And this is the thing. So, is it God? Is God doing it? And was it a supreme judgment from God? And who's God with? Is God with, the King, or with Pope Francis, or with Bishop of London? Is God with the laws, the legislation? What happens when a law says, ABC, but it's not happening? So, the law says this or that. Now, if they don't have to follow the law, it says they do. This is the thing when we're getting down to these oaths being diluted down and changed. So we've got a problem. I think Jordan Peterson did a video. He's done a video about, God versus God or whatever, or, I haven't watched it because I can't bother watching it because Jordan Peterson, I don't agree with a lot of things that he says. But effectively, that's the thing. So, who's right and who's wrong? Well, you're not wrong when you're right, and you're right when you know you're right and when you don't lie, particularly if you've taken an oath yourself, so it's not possible to lie, or it's very difficult. So, we've got we've got a problem, because these people will say, well, they've got the privilege of not having to comply with the law. Well, they actually, when they lie or defraud, then they don't have the privilege, and it's up to us. We've got the right to bring a grievance or things that have been done properly, without being subject to any consequences from that. So this is where we are, and this is the thing, and the issues are extremely serious. They couldn't be more serious. In fact, they're so serious that it seems like we're not going to be able to get a resolution. It seems like even though in law these people have got problems. They've got an allegiance, right? And there's allegiance to God and allegiance to the King, and then there's legislation they've got to follow. But then they've got directives that if a complaint is really bad, then they're not allowed to understand or recognise it. But yet that contradicts their oath to defend and protect the rights. Now, if they were protecting our rights and upholding our rights, then doing something about the problem is a different issue. Well, they're not even. The problem and issue is that they're not upholding the rights, which was why they did these oaths in the first place, and in the 1688 Bill of Rights, and made it very clear. But they've been chipping away at it again. So we're being scammed, we're being cheated, and then you've got people like Priti Patel who are just taking a wee on the whole thing, like just taking a piss all over it, just squatting and pissing on it, right? And not making it any better. This is the thing. When we've got serious issues, because we're trying to do something about corruption and lies at a very high level. So this is the thing. So what can you do other than pray? All you can do is pray. And some people, don't have any interest in religion. What would Dawkins do? Well, this would really melt Dawkins' brain, because this is why Dawkins doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about when he's going into science. Every single thing can be explained scientifically, but I can't be bothered explaining it to Dawkins. Why should I have to? I don't want to explain it in scientific terms to Dawkins. I can't be bothered. Effectively, we've got issues, and where everyone's seeking a higher power, because other persons will not do what they've supposedly meant to do. And now they're saying that we're not the ones, we're the ones who aren't doing what we're allowed to complain, right? And they don't seem to think that we've got a right to complain anymore in the manner that we have got a right to complain, because because it's very serious, you know. And that's it. You know, it literally is a very, very sad state of affairs, you know. And there's some people, there are things happening which we're being lied to about, which is like, this whole Parliament information is blatantly obvious. They're taking that Sir Thomas Erskine May section out, which informs us of our rights. We know what they've done. It's not rocket science. They've sneaked it out, and they're trying to lie about it, and then they've changed the oath so they don't have to uphold our rights. They're trying to take our powers away because they don't think that we should have them, and we need them because it prevents. It gives us power to stop them when they aren't following the rules as well. So, okay, if we don't follow the rules, then, people have to be prosecuted and go to court. But when you identify that they're breaking the rules, then you have got the power to do something about it. And they don't like that. And this is the problem with the Crown Prosecution Service. They get in a job where they think they're in charge the whole time. They think they're the ones calling the shots when they're actually, just a minute, I note here that you completely and totally broken the law, right? And that means that you are in the wrong. And this is what they can't handle. These people like to do jobs when they punish people, but notice that the people who are doing the punishing don't like to be the ones who are getting punished, right? So, they're really in the wrong business. It's almost kind of like, getting a job in tennis and then say, oh, do you want a game of tennis? But they don't like, it can go both ways, a tennis game, and they don't like losing. This is the thing. They're hard losers. They don't like losing. They're cheats. They're scum. I think the Crown Prosecution Service, they shouldn't be allowed to form a regime, a body. Maybe everyone, all lawyers should maybe do, like a year in the CPS and then, a year or two in normal law and then back again, because otherwise they become corrupt. And maybe they need trained people who are competent to do their job. Look, all lawyers are trained and competent. Maybe this is why the lawyers aren't good, because they don't know as many different laws. If these lawyers did, if they had to do, rather than like just specialise as a, fucking Tony Blair with his employment law, and with the worst prime minister in history, these solicitors should have to do, civil rights, but then they should also have to do history and also constitutional law, and then maybe they do some employment law. Like you got your duty solicitor doing a rota, and then you learn all different laws and then how they all fit and work together, right? And also they should do a bit of work in the Crown Prosecution Service and get some of the other side of it. When Keir Starmer went to work and lead for the CPS, he hadn't even been a prosecutor, right? So, when he didn't even learn to properly do human rights law properly, because he didn't even know constitutional law or privileges. So, as a guy who he hadn't even learned the thing that he was leaving before he started something else, and then he was in charge of it. They wanted someone who would stand up for people's rights and the victims, yeah, but he didn't even learn to stand up for people's rights who are using rights. They're purposely designing it so they're dumb, and to maximise profit and money out of it, and actually it suffers the most because the laws aren't getting used, recognised and put into effect properly to the full extent of how they were designed for. But instead, laws get used in the most least effective ways in many instances for huge amounts of money.
In fact, it's all about the money, and these people won't even, wouldn't, they don't want to speak to you after you've paid them. They are very controlling. The whole thing is very, usually because it's quite serious. The consequences of doing things wrong at that level are quite bad. So they have to become controlling, or they'll get in trouble. So it's bad. They've got bad teachers. They've got very, very, very bad teachers. Look at Parliament. Jamie Stone MP. They're changing people's prayers in respect to persons. That's against every judicial oath there is. Coercing people to alter their statements, and things like that. So they've got bad teachers, people like Tony Blair, Margaret Thatcher, David Cameron, criminal. Boris Johnson, mungling Boris Johnson, another criminal. Those are the people who need to be locked up in prison. They're not. They don't deserve privileges. They're who's these police inspectorates, these police and crime commissioners, House of Lords, all these other mysterious figures, Lord Chamberlains, there's nothing wrong with the model of the House of Lords if you have got people who are keen on the job, and it used to be better. But even then, Parliament was burning down. You got all kinds of things going on. There's a Ouija coming back out again. The juju. They're sacrificing the entire building. Which can't possibly be an accident.